Ubisoft found themselves in hot water when they released the first trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows because a lot of gamers were upset at the idea that this is the first game in the Assassin's Creed franchise set in feudal Japan, but one of the main protagonists, the actual samurai in the game, is played by a black person. And now, in defense of Ubisoft a little bit, Yasuke was a historical figure in Japanese history, but they were exaggerating what he actually did, and him being a samurai is a complete work of fiction, but a lot of people are trying to claim that that's actually the real situation, which is why you're seeing this huge like to dislike ratio on the game. So not a good news, all things considered, but a lot of people trying to defend this started going to the Wikipedia page on Yasuke and trying to edit it to take out all mentions that he wasn't actually a samurai, because the evidence that he was is basically just dubious at best, but they're trying to remove that bit of it in order to try to justify having a black samurai in their game. And now it's gotten even worse for Ubisoft, because not only are Western gamers kind of upset by this change in the Japanese history, but Japanese people are upset by it as well. And some of them are actually calling for this game to be removed entirely. To the surprise of no one without a grain of sense, Japanese players are not happy with Ubisoft's decision to use Assassin's Creed's first official foray into the island nation as a platform for diversity activism. Notably, the decision to feature Yasuke as one of the game's protagonists marks the first time in the entirety of Assassin's Creed that a real-life historical figure, albeit a highly fictionalized version of them, will be made available as a playable character. And like I said, this is a fictionalized version of it because the real life Yasuke wasn't a samurai, and that's what people were trying to go on the Wikipedia page and change, because that's kind of the whole point of what they're doing with this game, is saying like, oh, he was a black samurai. Isn't that cool? You get to play as a black samurai. And I personally don't have a problem with them including Yasuke in the game, because yes, he is based off of a historical figure, and it is kind of an interesting footnote in Japanese history, but that's all it is. What I have a problem with is people trying to build this up to be something that it's not, because it's given people the wrong impression of Japanese history, and it can kind of be considered historical revisionism at best and something a little bit more malicious at worst. But let's continue. To this end, believing that Shadow's portrayal of Yasuke as a full-blown samurai rather than a simple retainer was both culturally insulting and outright attempt at historical revisionism. One unhappy Japanese player took to change.org on June 19th to launch a petition demanding that Ubisoft not just take the game back to the drawing board, but wholesale cancel their plans for its development. Personally, I think a lot of these change.org petitions are kind of cringe, because all they really serve as is just another way for people online to voice their anger with something. And if that's what you want to do, then fine, you're free to do that. I'm not going to criticize you for that. But for people who actually think it's going to install some real change, like, I'm sorry, whether you have 1,000 signatures or 10 million signatures, it really doesn't matter. The studio is going to do what they want to do. I think what people should do as a consumer is just make it clear that, yeah, they're not going to buy this game if this is what they're going to do. And then once they see the low sales figures, well, then that will send a message to the company, and hopefully they'll learn that lesson, or at least their shareholders will hold their feet to the fire and make sure they don't make stupid decisions like this again. But one thing I do think is kind of funny is that they released this on June 19th. And I know most people in the world won't understand the significance of that. And frankly, most Americans won't understand the significance of that as well. But some people try to use that as a black holiday. So I just think it's kind of funny that they were using that as, or they happened to release this petition at that time. But let's continue. It talks about the person who created this change.org petition, Shimizu Toru, and some of the things that he actually had to say within that petition are as follows. Throughout this history, Ubisoft continues to misunderstand the nature and role of the samurai. Toru continued, this is a serious insult to Japanese culture and history and could lead to Asian racism. We demand that Ubisoft immediately stop the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows and show serious investigations and respect for Japanese history and culture. And according to this article, that petition has reached just over 21,000 signatures from a goal of 25,000. So, all right. I mean, it still hasn't reached it yet. But like I said, I mean, change.org is just another avenue for people to voice their frustration. This article also goes into details about some other Japanese gamers who are upset about it. I'm not going to necessarily read all of them right here. I'll leave a link to this article in the description of the video if you want to check it out yourself. But what does Ubisoft have to say about it? Because apparently they're not actually trying to make any moves in order to correct this error in their project. In fact, the CEO of Ubisoft went so far as to pretty much attack gamers, saying that he's upset about people like attacking his staff and other things like that. Never mind the fact that his staff are the ones who initially started attacking gamers. So they just started responding to that. And this is kind of where we are right now. But this is also a problem with a lot of these big companies within the gaming industry, because they don't seem to understand you're supposed to treat your customer right. I mean, at least that should just be like a basic thing from any business standpoint. Like, obviously, if a customers are abusive and stuff like that, well, then that's one thing. But if your employees are the ones who initiate the aggression, well, then that's kind of on the company itself. And I think those employees should be the ones disciplined. He says that he's trying to stand by them and their creative decisions and other things like that. But it's pretty obvious what they did when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows. They're initially trying to just kind of stir the pot a little bit because they knew it was going to create controversy by making Yasuke a samurai in the game, make him the protagonist of the game. Because a lot of people were saying that they don't even have anything against including him in the game or even including him in his actual role as a retainer in the game. I think that would have been kind of cool because that is an interesting bit of information in Japanese history to have a black retainer in the game. He could have actually even been a companion, not a companion character, but a friendly ally in the Assassin's Creed game, because we've seen that in the past where they'll have real historical figures as kind of allies to the playable character. So I think that should have been the approach they're going, but it seems like they wanted the virtue signal just a little bit too much, and they tried to embellish the actual history just a little bit too much. And I know Assassin's Creed games aren't necessarily historically accurate, and I don't have a problem with them changing things up to an extent. But what the issue is when they're trying to go out of their way to make it seem like this is actually Japanese history when it's not the case, because that is pretty disrespectful. But that's just kind of what I think about it. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you think this is disrespectful to Japanese history? Or do you think just because it's a game that's not supposed to be historically accurate that we should just accept what it is? Comment below, and if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share the video because it helps out with the channel. Thank you.